we're working together in a collaborative way to advance regenerative and agroecological approaches through multi-stakeholder collaboration. And we have a growing set of strategic collaborators, and this represents organizations on our high-level advisory group and our experts network. However, we have an even wider global network of up to 1,000 organizations that we've engaged with over time over the last couple of years. So we're aiming to drive alignment between diverse food systems actors to collectively transition towards positive regenerative outcomes. We're developing a guiding star for what a regenerative food system can and should look like, and that was what Liz mentioned around an outcomes framework. We were actually asked to develop a definition of regenerative. We decided not to. So rather than coming up with a definition, we thought we would try to illustrate what a truly holistic regenerative food system should look like. And so that's part of what we're doing with the outcomes framework. We know that different practices have different outcomes in different contexts. And so we want to focus our attention on the outcomes that we agree are necessary. So the framework itself aims to be holistic by centering the social-cultural alongside the environmental and economic dimensions of change. It operates both at farm and landscape levels, so that's to understand across a set of 12 dimensions the complementarity and the trade-offs that happen when actions are taken on one or the other side. We're also developing a multi-stakeholder narrative of what and why we believe, despite our differences, that we agree on the need for a regenerative food system. And finally, our global engagement is only as useful as it can be if it's anchored in the work that is happening on country to facilitate costed, locally led regenerative transitions, the likes of which you are all doing. So where we come from as the framework, we developed it collaboratively a couple of years ago with partners and stakeholders and experts, always centering farmer priorities, to think about how we can really raise the floor on what we're calling regenerative. As we've said, it's sort of a double-edged sword when we say regenerative. There isn't the definition. On one hand, this is fantastic because it means that everyone's welcome, everyone has a starting point and an opportunity to progress from. But on the other hand, it's really easy to just do a little bit and say that that's it. What I'm doing is regenerative. I don't have to try any harder. The formal trials and consultations for the Regen 10 framework, multiple locations, and you'll see Australia being among them, to WA, and worked with RegenWA, with Stuart and team. The trial included a farm visit and a series of surveys with the team and with local farmers. Despite the fact of the diversity of the country, and even at this stage, that there were so many organizations in the space that are quite deeply connected already. I think this conference is a clear example of that observation. From what we heard from RegenWA, we heard clearly that we need to emphasize more strongly in the framework outcomes related to inclusivity and of local knowledge, and also centering farmer well-being and human rights. We're doing a series called Regen Journeys, which are intended to illustrate the different pathways towards a fully regenerative system that can be taken by different stakeholder types. So really acknowledging the difference, of course, between smallholder farmers, large businesses, for example, but acknowledging that while those pathways vary vastly, the direction is the same. Another area of work that we dived into was around using modeled data to understand what a transition pathway could look like. From conventional farming to regenerative and agroecological approaches. So using a handful of regenerative practices in a conventional farm context and looking at that profitability curve over a 10-year period. We believe deeply in farmers speaking their truth themselves. As I said yesterday, we don't need to be here speaking on behalf of others. We also believe that the table needs to be set up for effective engagement from day one and not sort of slapping farmers onto the discussion towards the end just because it looks good. As an entity, we've offered spaces for farmers from Australia, Stuart included, but also from many other countries around the world to speak at these global fora such as the COP meetings and talk about the issues and challenges and solutions that are being found along the way. I think it was Joel, in your slides today, you had a beautiful image there around intercropping.
What is the impacts of a diverse array of root systems? Deep tap rooting, more branching, fibrous root systems, shallow, deep, you name it. We have a range of different root systems there on the right-hand side. So with that diversity comes a diversity of foodstuffs coming in to feed a greater diversity of the biology.
And for me, it was an illustration not just of the value of intercropping, but also to me it provided an illustration of the need to work together and to connect. One crop on its own has beneficial results for the soil, sure, but two different crops sharing the same space reaps positive outcomes equal to more than the sum of their parts. Thank you to the organizers of this conference for providing a space for us all to share, to learn, and to connect. Speak to you all.